Hey, hi friends. So today we are going to see the basic concepts of Angular, and here in this video I'm just going to compare various versions like Angular 6, 7, 8, and 9. So before starting this course or this video, I just wanted to uh, make you I just wanted to make you all know that we can divide the Angular versions into two halves. So in two halves means you can say that the first half or the previous versions, bundle of previous versions, were Angular 2, Angular 4, Angular 5. These are called the previous versions or older versions. Why they are called older versions? The reason is that Angular started, or the TypeScript or the newer version of Angular came from Angular 2 onwards. So gradually when Angular 2 came into the market, they were not very sure how the market is going to take, because it was a heavy change on Angular side. Maybe the TypeScript they bought for the first time, and many more changes they bought which market was not so aware about. So the basic thing or their main challenge was how market is going to go ahead with. So there were already existing the competitors for Angular, like React was already there in the market, which was gaining the popularity. Now if you go to vue.js, there that was also growing in the competition. It was also a competitor for Angular. So gradually what Angular thought is that in order to make it more competitive, so that people, more and more people get back into Angular, they started bringing few of the features in order to make it also a powerful framework. So Angular after 2, it went to Angular 4, where it bought some of the features, then Angular 5. So till Angular 5, it mostly it was not up to the par with the market. It was gradually growing, but it did not caught the market because there were many disadvantages of Angular at that time. So those things we will be discussing in next video. So I'll give you the link as soon as that video is ready, and I'll share with the past what Angular is, why we are going to use Angular, but concentrating mostly on what we are going to discuss in this video. In this video, what we are going to discuss is Angular 6, 7, 8, and 9. From Angular 6 onwards, major changes started happening in Angular world. And those changes made Angular, or it again regained the popularity which it was having while it was in Angular JS version. So if you now go to GitHub or any of the site to compare how Angular is doing with in compared to other versions like Vue and React, it's gradually catching the market now. So those things I'll discuss in my next video. So starting with this video, here we are basically going to tell you, I don't know, many of you might be working presently also due to some project requirement or something like that. You might be on Angular 4, 5, or 6, 7, and 8, or many of you might be working on Angular 9 as well. So a few people who are working on previous versions and are excited to know what thing is going on in Angular world, what new things are coming or new things are popping up in the Angular world. So that is the thing what we are going to discuss in this slides. Okay, so not wasting much of your time, we will start with Angular 6 versus 7 versus 8 versus 9. And hi, myself Ankit. So we'll start with the slides. So the next slide is, I'll better go with slideshow mode. It makes his screen look better. So if we go to the second slide, so I just given a basic overview. What is Angular? What is the latest version of Angular that is in the market? So Angular 9 is the latest version of Angular that was launched as of June 2020. It got released on 7th February. And basically here what is our agenda we are going to cover. So here basically we are going to cover or compare the various versions and enhancement that Angular did in order to in order to make the developers who are going to use it get better enhancement or better experience and better developing condition and make the output of the development very effective as compared to other frameworks. So let's see what Angular 6 brought into market. When Angular 6 came into market, it was like based upon the problem statements which we used to feel when we were in Angular 5, Angular 4. Those problem statements which was making or which was dragging Angular back in the competition with React and Vue. It's most focused. You can say that Angular 6 was a major release for Angular, which just changed the way Angular used to be up to Angular 5. So you can see that from Angular 6 onwards, many things changed in Angular, which made it super powerful. So Angular 6 was the newest version. Till Angular 5, we considered it to be an old version, and from Angular 6 onward, we considered it to be a newer version. So it got released on 4th May 2018. So what all the major features that came along with Angular was the command line interface. So prior to Angular 6, there were many GitHub projects, starter projects, which were provided to you from Google, which you can download, start making project on that. So sometimes it used to be much complicated because there used to be too many files which used to be there, and which was making the person who was first time developing projects into TypeScript, their hard their the way they used to work was very different. And with those many file system, it used to be really difficult, because first you need to create a manual file, then you need to put the dependency. So there were so many things going on at that time. So they took that problem statement and they started with something called command line interface, or you can call it Angular CLI. So the main function of Angular CLI was to generate a project for you with all the dependencies embedded into it. You can easily create the component, you can easily create services or anything which is Angular related with ease. You don't need to bother about, if you create something, you need to put it into app module.ts file or those things. Everything got easily handled using command line interface. So now the second thing is component development kit. So if most of you might have heard about Angular Material. If not, then in future I'm going to make a video on Angular Material as well. So in Angular Material, what we get is that we get inbuilt components which Angular provides to you, which you can directly use in your project. So similar to that there is something called component development kit. From the name itself, it's clear that we can easily develop a component using that kit. So what is that? That Angular provides you a minimum capability things, like it provides you a shell kind of thing or a starter thing, which you can pick it up, and based upon your requirement, you can enhance it or make it bigger or better. For example, you can have a table which is made up in component CDK, or you can call it component development kit. So it provides you a basic table structure. Now that basic table structure is being used by mat table in their way, and they call it mat table. So what they took is that they just took the common structure out from CDK and they wrote their own CSS, everything over that table, and they called it mat table. So for component development kit also, if you are having any problem, you can comment and I'll explain you, or if you want a separate video on that, I can do that as well. So next one thing is that Angular Material package came with a new TypeScript versions. So TypeScript also I'm going to cover in my later tutorials. And the most important thing was internationalization, or I-18, which came with Angular 6. So internationalization is nothing but, if you imagine that you are working in India or US, any English speaking country, but your application can be used by some non-English using community or a group of people might be using it. Like it can be used in Germany, France, or China or Japan, anywhere. So you need something in order to convert a normal English into their specific language so that they can easily go ahead and read those things. So that thing was already available in previous versions, but what used to happen with each and every module, only a single file used to get formed. So that was a problem with previous version. So now with Angular 6 they bought that it is going to get created at the runtime, so you don't need to have only one bundle with one module. So now you can have multiple modules and you can play along with that. That is the main thing in Angular 6. Now again, a new concept came called Bazel compiler. So compiler is basically used for creating or compiling your code which you are going to write it. So there used to be many codes for which the whole application again needs to, again whole build used to be, or whole bundle used to get formed even due to your small changes and all. So Bazel compiler, what it did was it just only compiled and built those part which was getting changed. So that is the advantage that Bazel compiler brought. So compiler, which converts one part of language into other, it compiles your code. So Bazel compiler, what it did, if a particular code you have changed, it will only convert that page, make build for that, not for entire application. So how it helped us? It helped us by the performance thing. It helped you to get a better performance as compared to previous compiler which used to be there with small changes also the whole thing used to get built. So that got solved in Angular 6. Now there is something new thing again called ng add and ng update. So ng add is nothing but if you want to add any library into your project, or you have created any reusable library with many components, many CSS, many logic into it, and if you want to add that into your current project, you can use ng. Now, if you want to migrate from Angular 6 to Angular 7, 7 to 8, 8 to 9 or something like that, for that, you can go ahead with ng update. Sorry. And previous to Angular 6, we used to call template as ng template tag we used to use. And now we are using template only. Now there is again a concept called tree shaking. So that is also based on the changes that used to be previously done in one part of code used to trigger for whole application. So now only that particular thing which got changed will be handled. So that is also mostly for the performance related changes. So these special things came with Angular 6. So when Angular 6 came into market, many people or many developers who were using from Angular 5, they got many powerful features. So Angular, again, if you go through the GitHub, or you can see the ratings from Angular 5 to Angular 6, Angular 6 made the ratings higher, and Angular now started competing or came back into the race with React and Vue.js frameworks. So from here, Angular 6, these important features came into picture. Now, if I go to Angular 7, so as you know that Angular nearly releases every 6 to 7 months a newer version with more and more changes. So there is advantage and disadvantage also to it. Advantage is that with each and every newer version that is coming, there comes a better performance. They are continuously trying to improve the performance of the application. So they are continuously working on the things which we can handle with newer versions and make it more faster and faster. What is the disadvantage? So the disadvantage is that you need to continuously go through the documentation. You continuously needs to be updated with the versions that is coming in the market. So this becomes a disadvantage for the Angular from the community, the people who are using it. But the best part it is giving you is continuously enhancing the experience and improving the maintenance, and many more things are coming with the newer versions of Angular. So here in Angular 7, it got released on October 2018. It added CLI prompts. So previously, when you used to write ng generate or anything of CLI commands, it directly uses to go ahead and perform operations. But in Angular 7 onwards, it started prompting you. It started asking you whether you want routing in your project or not. If you say no, then app routing module do not use to get created. Similarly, if which kind of flavor of CSS you want, whether you want SCSS or which either you want to go with CSS only. So those were the prompts which helped you to generate your own flavor of CSS or routing based upon your requirement. It used to generate your project structure. So this was one of the change. Now again, in Angular 7 also, they were continuously working on a new compiler. New compiler means Angular's most, or the most important thing for Angular is to focus on how to make the build size smaller and smaller, so that the speed with which the apps or the page with the rendering is happening at production phase becomes very fast. So that is their most important motto through which they are going on and getting it better and better with the coming versions. So here also they came with new compiler called ng compiler, which used to have ahead of time capability, and it reduced the bundle size about 85% from what it used to be. So it was like a boom, and the bundle which used to get created just became smaller and smaller. So hence the speed of the app, or the rendering power became very fast. So this was what Angular 7 gave to the Angular community. So now virtual scrolling. Now virtual scrolling is something. For example, when you go to Facebook or you go to YouTube, and when you continuously go on scrolling down and down and down. So what happens is, based on your scroller position only, what happens? You get a loading, and the data comes out from the server. For example, you just remember you go to Facebook page. In Facebook, when you slide down, what happens? More and more data gets loaded based on the scroll bar. So that feature came in CDK, or the which I already discussed in Angular 6 about component development kit. So in their component development kit, they bought something called virtual scrolling. So that virtual scrolling you can use, or you can take a starter pack from Angular, and you can go ahead by encapsulating or something over your CSS. You can make it like that. Similarly, drag drop feature came into picture, where you can use the drag drop basic thing from CDK, and you can develop your own over it and use in your application. Similarly, application performance, what I say already told in ng compiler. Similarly, they worked on the application performance. They are continuously working with the newer version which is going to come. Now again a new thing came, like Angular do bootstrap. So they just made an interface called ng on bootstrap, or you can call it a, see, and at present you would have seen the bootstrapping happening from @ng module. So that bootstrapping you can also do from some other files based upon your requirement. So you can use Angular's to bootstrap. And in router also, they bought certain changes in the way it takes the parameter in order to way it moves to the pages. So those things were they're in Angular 7. Now in Angular 8, again became very famous, and the ratings, if you go and see, you will see that Angular 8 was a boom for Angular community. It got released on May 28. So there was a into the workflow and performance improvements. As I already told you, that they are basically working on improving the performance. So what they bought Ivy engine. So this is something for which I'll create a new video over which I'll be explaining you what is Ivy. But in Angular 8, it was on beta version only. So you you cannot use Ivy as a with a full power in Angular 8. So that engine or that power became visible in Angular 9 onwards. It will become so. Ivy engine also got introduced in Angular 8. They also started working on the web workers. So basically, if you don't know what is web workers are if you want a parallel execution of your threads. Say that if you want to perform 2 3 operations at a time, so that basically happens with your web workers. So basically, not going or not doing everything from your main thread. Now they divided the threads into secondary threads. Use now got the power to execute operations. So if you're not much clear on web workers, I'll make a video on that also, because these are not small topics where I can just give you, because it requires certain in more knowledge is required on web workers and all. So I'll be doing that in my next videos. I'll be continuously based on your asked which all things you want to learn. Based on that, I'll be continuously going and helping you on that one. So the next thing is the lazy loading feature. So in routing, lazy loading was already there. Means whenever you want a particular module to load, you can load at that time only. It's not that when application launches, you want all the modules to be there, right? So what it does, it basically reduces the performance of the application. So what you want that I want a particular module only when it is required from routing side. So that was lazy loading in routing phase. So now what Angular did is that it bought a lazy loading in ECMAScripts also. It means that only that particular modules or ECMAScript library will be loaded internally, which are required in order to create that page. So what is the benefit of that? Previously, all the ECMAScripts libraries and scripts used to get loaded at the initial phase only, which used to make the performance of the page slower. So now with the lazy loading introduction, it gradually became faster, because only the required ECMAScript libraries or scripts will only be loaded based on the requirement in the page. Now, Angular Firebase is something which I thought to cover in next video, because Angular Firebase is something which requires more information. So here in this one, I'll only say that Angular Firebase integration became much easier as compared to the previous versions of Angular. Now, in differential loading is one of the most important thing that Angular 8 bought. So what is differential loading? So basically now 2 bundles will be created in Angular. Previously, it used to be only 1 bundle, and based on the if some browsers like IE does not support much of the ES6 features or ES6 things. So for that, we need to depend on polyfills or something like that. So now what Angular thought, in order to increase the performance, because we need to load so many things in order to handle such browser. So what it is, it made 2 bundles, one with the things which are supported by nearly all modern browsers, and one will be used by the browsers which are not so advanced, like IE11 or IE10. So that is differential loading. So what is the benefit? What will be the benefit of it? The benefit will be that the loading speed of the application will be much faster than it used to be. So now what is opt-in usage sharing? So opt-in usage sharing is that right now you are having IV as an engine. Previously, it used to have a different engine for loading. So now opt-in means you can opt for any of the engine thing you want to go ahead with. Means you can switch between IV and the present engine which it uses. So this is opt-in feature and Angular CLI builders. So builder API is something which you can use in order while at the time of creating of the project. So whenever you do ng generate, there are few files which get created and everything. So if you want some external files or extra files to get generated at the time of project creation, or you want to change something internally, so you can go with Angular CLI Builder API. So these are the important features which rolled into Angular 8, making it more powerful. And coming to Angular 9, this is the latest version of Angular that is available in the market. So what is the benefit of it? Or Angular 9, from starting onwards, I already told you that Angular in each and every version, it's continuously going and improving the performance of your app, may it be internally or externally. Internally and externally means, the changes which came, you won't be directly seeing it and using it from the code perspective, but internal things are like it made changes into compilers in order to make the bundle size smaller and smaller. So those are the internal changes. So with Angular 9 came much of the internal changes started happening in Angular 9. So from here itself onwards, it is the latest which got released on 7th of Feb 2020. It uses Ivy as a default compiler. So as I told, I will be making a separate video on Ivy, but Ivy is a compiler which compiles, or the bundle which is formed using this compiler is much smaller as compared to the previous engine which Angular used to go ahead with. Now, I'll be creating a separate video on Ivy, so I'll be explaining more on that part. So now ng update, as I told, it came in Angular 6 only, but sometimes ng update used not to be so reliable, because ng update internally tries to update the libraries to its recent version, but sometimes converting it to recent versions becomes problematic, because due to there is dependency chain that is going on. So due to that, there used to be some problems, but with Angular 9 it became more and more reliable. Now there are new options in provided in Angular 9. You can, and the TypeScript version also got updated. Means if you want TypeScript also, I can take a separate video on that and you can comment on my video, but it got a new version of TypeScript which made this project, it provided more life to Angular. And component harness and phantom template variable menace, these things came, but these are not so important as was Ivy and ng update which came in Angular 9. So we compared various ages of Angular, from Angular 6 to Angular 7 to Angular 8 to Angular 9. So summarization, from Angular 7, there used to be Angular elements, CLI prompt, Ivy ingel, default Ivy, service workers. I'll be attaching this presentation in my description. You can download it and go through it. And if you have any problem, you can simply ask me. So what we are going to do next, as I told that I'll be making a video on Ivy. So what are we going to learn about Ivy? What is Ivy? How it helps developers? Many things are going to come. Stay tuned, stay focused on Angular development. Video is also going to come. So thanks everyone. If you have any questions, please comment and give us feedback. Also, based on, if you are having any questions, you can ask in the comment section. If you are having any suggestions which can be done better in the videos, you can please suggest in comments. So these are the initial videos which we are going to create, which we are creating. we have many more things in our mind. Based upon the response what we get from you all people, we'll be making more videos and try to make it better and better every time. So thanks guys, please like and subscribe if you like the video. And yeah, thanks everyone. Bye.